But I'm joined now by three-time NBA champion B.J. Armstrong and Fox NBA analyst Slick Ric Bucher. So, Slick, did Paul George silence people like you, his critics?
Oh, easy there. Yes,
Already.
He did. For 48 hours. By the way, BJ, be prepared. Marcellus was insufferable yesterday. I can only imagine what he's going to be today.
It gets worse.
But yes, but for 48 hours. Because the reality is, we've seen Paul George give us big performances before. And he hasn't closed the deal necessarily. And the class of star that we put Paul George in, the class of star that his talent puts him in, and I dare say the class of star that he himself considers himself in, doesn't just have big playoff performances here and there. They win series. They go to conference finals. And ultimately, that's something that Paul George still has to accomplish, still has to get done. He's been consistent throughout these playoffs in a way that you could argue we've never seen before. But it's not over. He needs to get to the next step. And when I look at the Clippers and what they have, it wasn't a surprise or shouldn't have been a surprise that they got it done in Game 5. And it wasn't just Paul George getting it done. He has led the way consistently, not just with his scoring, but with his rebounding, his defense, doing the little things. I need to see him complete the journey before we're going to take away the whole talk of pandemic P and we're going to start talking about playoff P again.
It's amazing that I just heard, 2 minutes from Slick Ric Bucher. And I thought that Paul George did silence his critics. But if I just heard you talk for 2 minutes, obviously his critics still have stuff to say. And not only do they have stuff to say, they have goalposts to move. And it was amazing. I don't know if you heard. I don't know if you heard Slick really between all the beeping, beep, beep, goalposts moving. But I'm going to set it straight. First, let me get into a full screen. It's been a long time since I did a full screen. So, you know, it is time to show you guys what Paul George has been doing in the playoffs right now. I'm showing you guys that are averaging in the conference semifinals, which is a money series, 29 plus, 9 plus rebounds, and 4 plus assists. Woo! Kevin Durant. Interesting. Joel Embiid and Paul George. That's it. You take that full screen away, you think of those other two players, there's no joking. There's no criticism of those guys to the highest level like a Paul George. Now, we all know that Embiid is still in his pursuit of doing what Kevin Durant did not once but twice. But this is why I think it's moving the goalposts. Everyone who is trying to be hypercritical of Paul George, even a Joel Embiid, is doing just this. At first, you get into sports and they tell you, oh, man, just do it as much as you can, as long as you can for the love of the game. And then one day you look up and Daddy looking at you a little different and you're like, Daddy, I love playing sports. He's like, nah, we need more out of you. We need you to go win it all. And you're like, all right. And then there's some people like Slick Ric who take notice that Daddy's being critical of his son. And all of a sudden they start saying, let's jump into it. You at least got to make it to the finals, to the championship. So now you ain't got to be just loving it. You ain't got to just be the one. You got to be one of the two. Then Slick Ric gets homeboys in the media, and they start saying, well, at least make it to a conference finals and be one of the Final Four teams. What the hell are y'all really selling? The point of this is, are you a baller? Do you contribute to the greater good of your team? And can you put your team on your back? Paul George can do all those things. So his critics should be shushed right now because we saw it last night as pure evidence of Paul George being not only elite, but a franchise player.
Well, guys, it's been interesting to watch. You asked the question, is he silencing the critics? The answer is no, because the way we look at the game and the way the game is evaluated now, especially in the media, social media, and all of, is the media is going to continue to criticize him when he doesn't play well, okay? My only criticism of Paul George is the following. The best players are always instinctive players. And when Paul George is instinctively aggressive, there's nothing we can say. We can't question this young man's talent, his ability to finish a game, his ability to score, and all of those things. When he's not aggressive, this is when all the critics come out. When he does what he was able to do in Game 5, you can't say anything. So for those who like Paul George, You can point to the stats. For those who don't like Paul George, they can point to the stats. The only thing I would say to Paul George is, Paul, don't allow you not shooting the ball well to affect how well you play or don't play. Because this young man can defend with the best of them. He can rebound. He has size. He can post. He can get to the mid-range. He can shoot long distance. So just play your game. And when he plays like that, when not only he's scoring the ball, when he starts creating opportunities for his teammates, he is one of the elite players in this league without question. So, you know what? But I think now the way the game is evaluated, when he doesn't play well, you're going to still hear the critics come out and criticize him, even though he's one of the elite talents. I don't think anyone can argue that.
Yeah, Marcellus, that beep, beep, beep that you heard, that wasn't goalpost being moved. That was you lowering the bar for elite players, okay? Here's the reality. We've seen Paul George have tremendous performances, and then we've seen him come up short. And by the way, Joel Embiid is getting criticism right now. Why? Because he's had big performances, but he isn't closing the deal. That has to be part of it when you're put in that elite category. And what do I mean by that? Because this isn't just last year or whatever. You've got a full screen? I've got a full screen. Can I have my full screen, please?
What's up?
Here is the history of big performances by Paul George, followed up immediately by a performance not so big. And in many instances, it has cost his team the series. We can go to a previous time against the Utah Jazz when he was in Oklahoma City. Big Game 5. And then what happened in Game 6? Didn't see anything like it. That's why he's gotten this reputation over the years, because he will follow up one great performance with one not so great performance. I have full confidence that he's capable of doing it this time. I think he has enough around him to make it a W if he does. But we're at the point now where Paul George has to demonstrate, if he's going to complete this circuit, what we saw against Dallas and what we've seen so far against Utah, then there's one more performance left to give. So at this point, this idea like, hey, no, Paul George is done. He's showed. He's a different Paul George right now. Work is not completed, Marcellus. And you can be confident. Be confident in your Clippers. I know they usually fall down at this point.
You better calm down.
I don't think they're going to this time.
Yeah.
But Paul George has got to make sure that they don't.
Look, it's not always on Paul George, as it's not always on any individual player. But we love to do that and construct that narrative like it's like that. Look at B.J. Armstrong. Part of the success he had was not just because of him, not just because of Michael Jordan, not just because of Scottie Pippen. It was a collective, but you know us in the media, let's not let the facts get in the way of a good story. Well, I'm the media member that's going to say facts over feelings. Let's be real about that. Joel Embiid is out there balling. Ben Simmons is the one that's doing what he does in these clutch moments, not be clutch, and that's the issue. So you tell me that, hey, I've seen you before, Paul George. You get big performances, but you don't close the deal. What's the alternative? Small performances, but he does close the deal? The dude is doing his part, and his issues, his criticism is not just because he's inconsistent. Be real about this. Our media has turned into the meme media. You know what the meme media is. Just give me one moment, something swaggy P-ish, and then all of a sudden, I don't give a damn what you do, we gonna always hold you to that. Paul George having a nickname and then hitting the side of a backboard is what started all this Paul George criticism and hate. Nothing else, because if you look at him, he has averaged over 20 points a game in every series. He scored over 20 points a game in every single game. He's had 30 or more points in 3 straight games. If you just look at Paul George, just these playoffs alone, why is there still the ridicule of playoff P when you see no evidence of the ridicule of what you're trying to say and suggest about playoff P?
Well,
BJ, take care of this for me, please.
Well, I mean, listen. In the end, I just want to see Paul George grind the game out. I really don't care whether he scores 30 points or 15 points. The thing is, what we want is the bottom line, which is to win the game. Paul George now has brought us here with an opportunity to close out Game 6 minus Kawhi Leonard and all of the obstacles that this team has in front of them. The thing that was amazing about that last game there in Utah, no one, myself included, expected them to win this game. Let's just call it like it is. No one expected them. Maybe Marcellus, but the rest of us didn't expect.
Right.
Yeah, no one else expected them to win the game. Now they come in an opportunity to win, and now we're all here again where we're saying, oh, Paul George, he's shown us that he can do it, but can he finish the deal? And Marcellus knows, and every player who's played professionally or at any level understand the following. There's difference than winning a game and closing out a game. Right now, we're expecting Paul George to close out a game because he has 2 opportunities, and we know how difficult it is to play in Utah. That's what made that win in last game so spectacular. They did it on the road, but now we're coming home, and we have every reason to believe that they should finish the deal against a team that's going to be playing with elite desperation here. So I'm excited, but if they don't win, I expect Ric Bucher to have fun on the show, and we don't know what's going to happen in Game 7 because that is a difficult task. So Clipper fans, this is your Game 7 right now because I think it's going to be almost impossible to win that game when you go back there in Utah.
That's exactly right. Everything is tilting in Paul George's direction. He set it up to close the deal now. If it doesn't get done, he's going to be at the top of the list. And I'm not going to have fun. I don't enjoy, like, pointing out somebody when they come up short.
Come on, Butte. Come on.
No. Here's the distinction. I enjoy what it does to Marcellus when I point out that Paul George is not doing what he could do. So ultimately, look, when we look at Marcellus,
what?
You just said that the Chicago Bulls, like the blame for losing or not getting it done, or the responsibility for getting it done, was spread across the entire team. I dare say B.J. Armstrong made his contributions, but ultimately, if they didn't get it done, it was Michael Jordan that was going to wear that, not B.J. Armstrong. Okay? I mean, let Tony Kukoc, you go down the line. Like,
I'm not
Judd Bushler wasn't going to take the hit if they didn't get it done.
All I'm saying is, did Michael Jordan get it done without Pippen? Did he get it done when he didn't have a fully formed Pippen? Did he get it done? No. And now this is a Kawhi-less Clippers team with Paul George, and you're going to try and reconstruct
He just got it done. He just got it done in Utah.
Oh,
yes.
You're making my point, and BJ helped me make my point as well. Here we go. BJ came on here just now saying no one thought they could win Game 5, correct? Did they win Game 5?
No, yes, I thought they could win Game 5.
Well, BJ said it. I'm using his words. So he said that.
I don't think any.
And then all of a sudden he says, well, it's going to be impossible to win Game 7 if you don't take care of business in Game 6. And that's the point. We up here, boy, we're responsible for making this thing look any way we want it to look. Think about it. We are treating Paul George like he's Swaggy P, like he out there making those type of moments, and that's not who he is. This is the Mark Sanchez model of how you just will bring somebody down before the actual stats will suggest that they should be criticized. Mark Sanchez took the Jets to not 1, 2 AFC championship games. Now, he wasn't balling out of control, nothing near what Paul George is, and he was fine. Protected. No one had a word to say negative about Mark Sanchez. Just wait for him to continue to prove. Go, Mark Sanchez, go. Soon as my man had a butt fumble, they said, got your legacy, got your career, and that's who you are in a bottle. We're doing the same thing to Paul George, despite this is the only guy in Clipper history, 35, 15, and 5 in a postseason game, despite him and only Kevin Durant having those same numbers in a postseason game this year, and despite him going 12 for 22 on the road without Kawhi in Utah, a place that Slick Rick said is impossible to play in as well, and he only had 1 uncontested shot. I'm sorry, y'all gonna be late to this one because y'all don't want to give him his flowers, but if you look at me, here you go, whole bouquet, dozen full for Paul George, playoff peak.